This is the All Elite Wrestling Podcast, Unrestricted.
Boom.
Thank you for saying that, Tony Schiavone.
Aubrey Edwards.
Thank you, Aubrey Edwards. And our guest is Executive Vice President and Talent for All Elite Wrestling. It says talent right here on the thing. But
who wrote that?
I don't know. It's
They
more
got
than
it
just
wrong.
talent. It's our buddy, Cody. What are you doing, bud?
I felt like you were going to give me a really strong introduction. And,
And
you started to. I was like, here we go. And then you
we're in.
kind of laid out on it. But I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to see you.
You know what? It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Wednesdays are fun, huh?
Yeah, they are fun.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not Wednesday, though.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, just the idea, everyone getting ready for Wednesday every week. Like,
It's pretty awesome.
It's not common in wrestling, really.
To have fun.
On
TV
What?
days.
everyone
to
be
have
excited about
Right.
going
Yeah.
Right.
to work. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I can remember in years past I was miserable about Mondays. Really? Miserable about it.
What years?
Probably 99, 2000.
Really?
Yeah.
Up
last
till
2
then,
years.
you were killing it, though, right?
Up to then, it was fun. It was, you know how TV is. I mean, God, everybody runs around a lot of times like a chicken with their head cut off, the old cliche, and things are crazy and things change. It's the way entertainment does. It changes all the time.
What was it? Last week we were backstage trying to launch a water bottle, basketball style, into a trash
I started
can.
that competition right there on the fly.
There was like
and
20 people cheering to try and get this one water bottle in a trash can.
Tell them who got it.
Who was it?
It was me.
Oh.
I started the competition, and I had no.
You just want to put yourself over.
I had no intention of being the winner. I was literally, hey, you try, and all the legends were watching us too, and it was
Right.
starting to become a little like, this is strange that this is exciting them so much, and then I sunk that water bottle.
I think
Sunk
Topher
it.
was running around like, we
Looked
can't
like
start
it.
the show until this is done.
I was
right? We're
about
like,
40
nope.
yards out, I think. Unreal. Athletic feat.
Well, that just tells us about what we know backstage and how fun it is and how great it is to work with you and everybody here backstage.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
blast.
I mean, it's good. You look forward to TV each and every week, and we're in double digits doing TV now.
Yeah, I know. Less than 20 though, right?
Yeah,
Depending on when this airs.
yeah. These are evergreen. So,
Oh wow.
So-
early gestation,
Right.
early stages.
Season one.
but it really, you look forward to going to work
Yeah.
and everybody backstage. And I would think that when you are looking for people to work in this company, Cody, you're looking for that, right? I mean, you're obviously looking for talented people, but you're also looking for people like the Atlanta Braves used to do. They were looking for not only good baseball players, they're looking for good people.
You're building a locker room.
So the big like requirements, I think when we started everything with me and Tony and Matt and Nick and Kenny but the big requirements, there was kind of like 2 words. It's 3 words, but fresh, like people who perhaps we haven't seen in the wrestling world or who haven't made it in that many locker rooms and on television. But the other one, the term we always use is we'd say extra credit. And what extra credit means is really just a kind of putting a bow on passionate. We were looking for all the people who like doing everything, who like everything. Like, they come to work, I want to do everything. I want to learn everything. I want to be a cameraman. I want to be a referee. I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a producer.
Sure.
I want to know everything. Even if they don't know why I'm standing here listening and watching, I want to have a master of all, and that's kind of what we've, for the most part. I don't know if we got any real lazy ass people. I'm thinking of somebody. I would love to scapegoat somebody, but
They're lazy ass people in all groups.
I know, but I can't think anybody. We got a pretty solid, like
We
everybody
do.
really wants
We
to go
do.
for it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think
Ambitious.
of anybody. It'll come to me.
ambitious.
Yeah, very ambitious.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to learn more in wrestling, which is kind of what we're doing each and every week. You
Yeah.
know, we're learning more and we're moving. Okay, so All In Chicago seems to be where AEW's idea really got rolling. Would that be accurate?
Depends on who you ask. And
We're asking you.
you'll ask everybody over
Right.
the course of Unrestricted here. Honestly, if you ask Matt and Nick, they're going to tell you a different story. If you ask Tony Khan, he's going to tell you a different story. But if you're asking me, to me, All In is where AEW 100% really got started.
Okay.
Everybody might have had those ideas and the big dreams, but this combustible series of events that happened with that silly, ridiculous, beautiful show is what I think gave people the belief that it could happen on a regular basis.
Tell us about the first time you talked with Tony Khan and how that conversation went when you first met him.
Brandi took the very first meeting, and because Tony is literally in charge of a lot of things, he was like 30 minutes late. So she was terrified of that situation. But when Tony met me for the first time, I've seen him do this with other people, but he has an analytical brain. Mm-hmm. He already knew. It seemed like he already knew everything about.
He knows your entire history.
Yeah,
he sure does.
He really does, and he wants to let you know. He knows, but there were a couple. The first time I feel like I really met him, because we had passed each other a few times. I'd even seen him backstage at WWE, but the first time I think I really met him was when I went to a Jags game. And I watched the game from, the owner's box, and he came up, in the middle of the game to talk to us, and I got to see how he kind of runs the infrastructure he's responsible for there. Mm-hmm. And I was so impressed, like really, really impressed, because he's so young. He's so kind of like vivacious too, like fun and like fun going, not this ball busting like different type. I'm used to a different type of boss.
Right.
I understand that
figure.
Yes.
Tony's the kind of guy that if you didn't know who he was, you would just assume he's a regular dude.
I mean, he's a regular dude who just happens to be very, very smart.
Very successful.
Very successful. Business savvy as can be. Surrounded himself. Did the smartest thing. Maybe the smartest thing I think I've learned from Tony is surround yourself with really trustworthy, smart people as well.
Okay.
Who aren't there just... Tony been rich his whole life, so if you're one of these, overzealous kind of young and hungry talents who thinks that he doesn't know, when you're just... I think Tony's very aware of when people are schmoozing around him over the fact that he's a billionaire, successful NFL-level entrepreneur. And I really like that about him, versus the fact that he surrounds himself with people who aren't just there for his money. And he's built a good team at AEW who really... The focus isn't about climbing any type of corporate ladder here as much as it's just about putting on the best possible show with AEW every Wednesday and topping your last show. I've learned a lot from Tony in a very short time. Just a charming fella. Good guy.
He's something else.
And a Star Trek fan.
So you're into both Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yes.
So do you ever have like a mental fight with yourself? Because I think you're not allowed to like both, right?
Yeah,
like that's how the internet works.
The internet is kind of they'll pick at it, but I like to tell people that Star Trek is for, like, Star Wars is for everybody.
Right.
Star Trek is for smart people. I don't know how it really. It's a completely different show, and the fact that they were like ever compared is so bizarre, because like one is...
They're so vastly different.
Yeah, one is like Camelot and like King Arthur and vast like legendary fiction, and then the other one is the concept of this utopia that happens, and the Gene Roddenberry, what is it, like his idea, the Trek future, no money, no war, when really all we're actually out there is for the expansion of the human race, what that would be like, and everything takes place on the ship, whereas there's a lot of theater of the mind in Star Trek too. I can't do them both at the same time. Like, I can't watch the Clone Wars animated series and then the Next Generation. Like, sometimes there's too much of an overlap. So like right now I've tried to get as much Star Wars out of my system. I've seen Rise of Skywalker a bunch and Mandalorian till I'm blue in the face. I just pre-ordered, and I don't even know why. One of the first pieces of merchandise they put out for the child is this silver pendant. Like, it's not for me,
right?
So I guess I'll give it to Brandi, who kind of likes the show, like not like super into it. But
I mean, you're supporting what you like.
But they're putting stuff out now, like right now.
Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, Build-A-Bear.
It's coming out with the Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
right?
Build-A-Bear.
What?
The pendant came out, and then the news about the dang puppet cost reportedly $5 million to make that puppet.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's the price tag they're saying on the child, $5 million. But what I was saying was, I get it out of my system. I get Star Wars out of my system so that like Picard's getting ready to hit the streets hard, and all I'm gonna want to talk about is Picard. So I got to get all the Star Wars out of my system. And also, Star Wars fan base is really toxic compared to the Star Trek fan base.
Gotcha.
The Trek fan base is like, oh, you like Trek too? Great. What's your favorite? Oh, well, I like this one. Star Wars fan base is like, oh, I like Last Jedi, and it's just like, just it's volatile.
Right.
Like, you know, so the Trek fan base is a lot friendlier. Like when you meet someone who likes Trek, you're like, that's cool. He's smart. That person's smart.
I get it.
Yeah.
Were you into Discovery? Did you like that? That was a lot of people really shit on that.
I love Discovery.
I did too.
I
Yeah.
can see why people. It's not
Because it's a war.
It's a war,
right.
and the Klingons
Right.
are, you know, they don't look like Worf. But then, I just heard Picard. They said, you know, they're kind of like implying Worf might be involved,
Right.
Ooh.
and they're saying, well, he's not going to be done in Discovery likeness. He's going to be Worf. And they put it great. They said, like, in every iteration of Star Trek, people have looked different. The Romulans have looked different. The
Right.
Klingons have looked different. Again, it's a lot.
It's like media evolves or something.
It's and I liked Discovery a lot. Michael Burnham, I can't say her name actually. The actress, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'll blow it if I say it. Soniqua, not even close. I bet. But the actress who plays Michael Burnham, like the emotional availability of that type of actress in the lead role. That's like what Trek is all about. If you look back at the Next Generation and you look at the Klingon actors, they were all Shakespeare actors, all of them. And then you look at the thing people like about Patrick Stewart the most. Sometimes the material was ridiculous. It was not ridiculous to Patrick Stewart.
Nope. Right.
His commitment to, I mean, that's the Cardassians and the lights. It's rough if you're probably reading it, but if you're Patrick Stewart, you're like, damn right, you know, like he committed, and they had a lot of great actors. So I liked that about Discovery is that they had great actors. They had Jason Isaacs, and they made a couple references to all the different Treks. Anson, I think, who plays Pike. Oh, you know, like what a stud, huh?
This isn't AEW.
What a tall drink,
Cody
tall
talks
drink
about
of
Star
water.
Trek for 45 minutes.
Pike was, yeah,
Yeah. So, by the way, Picard comes out on the 23rd of January.
huge.
I can't wait.
What's the pit bull? I'm excited about this random pit bull in there,
Right.
Just because he's got the tag. I think it's Data's, right? We were talking about this.
Right.
It's gonna be good.
Yes, it is.
Nothing he does is bad though.
No.
He's in like in good wrestling. When you have a good wrestler like Mick Foley, for example, like Mick Foley doesn't ever do anything bad.
No.
Ever. He might have been involved with other, but like anytime he's out there, there's usually a level of effort. That level of effort is always prominent with everything Patrick Stewart does. Everything. You can just sit back.
That's right.
He's got you. He's
That's right.
trustworthy, you know?
From the very first time he walked on the set.
Yeah.
First time we saw him, you thought, wow, good shit.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's the best.
He's the best. He's my favorite captain. Do you have a favorite? You don't watch Trek, do you?
I didn't watch Trek. I watched a little Voyager.
Well, Janeway was great.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah.
Just broke a few rules.
Yeah.
But she got handed a bad set of cards, guys. They're in the Delta Quadrant.
That's right.
You know what I'm
Trying to
saying?
make their
Like,
way back home.
Most of the people were like, who cares? And she was the one, her and Chakotay were like, hey, we'll keep the system.
Right.
And her and Chakotay had this great love that was building between them, and then they took it away when 7 and 9 got super popular. There's like a lot of business lessons in that show. Like 7 of 9, the ratings go through the roof, and then everything becomes 7 of 9. She was 7 of 9, the Doctor episode. Someone to watch over me.
Yes, that's right. Wow, very good.
That's hot money, guys.
So with all of
Hot
your
money.
love for Star Trek and Star Wars, are you one of the people where you watch any form of media and figure out how it can impact wrestling in any way, or are you very compartmentalized?
No, 100% the former. Wrestling is everything to me. And when wrestling compares itself to wrestling is when it's the worst.
Yes.
Versus you really should compare yourself to the hottest things that are out there going and do what you can to pluck and steal and incorporate it somehow, because we have such a unique canvas with the wrestling ring. We have to find a way to get to wrestling matches based out of these stories. So I like to steal from everything.
Like, are there any examples for like things you've stolen from that have impacted Dynamite?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Thanks.
That is good. I didn't even see that on the list.
Yeah, that's right, because I did extra research.
I will say, just
Pay me the big bucks.
in everything I approach, it's not something necessarily I stole from pop culture, but the best wrestling trainers I had, there's two of them, and one is Robert Gibson, who we know because he's Robert Gibson of wrestling.
Yeah.
And he taught me fundamentals. The other one is Howard Fine, who is not a wrestler, who's an acting coach in L.A., and I didn't want to be an actor. I thought I did. I thought I was too small to be a wrestler. And the whole time I was watching him, I was like, man, this is really applicable to wrestling. I wish more wrestlers would do this. Like, really just unbelievably, like, committed, not indicating actually being that person. And that he's probably one of my best wrestling trainers ever, has no clue. He's a fan of wrestling, but no clue. But I mean,
did you ever tell him after the fact?
Yeah, I mean, he went to the Performance Center to do acting classes for WWE because my dad recommended him.
Right.
And then I think they had to get away from using him because my dad didn't realize how expensive he was. It's just kind of my dad's whole world, you know.
It's like, we're just going to do this thing because he's the best.
Spend it now.
Money's not really...
Make more later, you know.
We're talking with Cody, and you're listening, of course, to AEW Unrestricted, and we're going to be talking about some of his big moments already here in AEW.
This is AEW Unrestricted. Tony Schiavone, Aubrey Edwards.
What's up?
We've got Cody here. We want to talk about a little bit big important moments for you. Dynamite's a big deal. Double or Nothing was a big deal. All Out's a big deal. Lots of big stuff happening. But is there anything that really stands out to you as like this was super important for me, for the future of the show, for how you run day to day, like anything in general?
I mean, we're like making them like it's literally like a memory every mile. It seems like with AEW in general, like every week is something brand new. There doesn't seem to be any business as usual.
No. And
I get it. It's year one, and year one is incredibly special. I always aim for everything to be incredibly significant, which is you fall short sometimes. Not everything is this, you know, earth-shattering segment. Two things maybe that I felt like personally I walked away from, and I went to my room that night, and I didn't sleep because I knew there were just two things I knew that I thought, okay, well that worked, and people are going to talk about that, and I feel good about that, and I think it will actually generate the thing we need the most. And the two things were the match with my brother at Double or Nothing, and not even the match as much as the throne breaking element of the match, the entrance. And then the second thing I did with Tony was there, was in Charlotte at Bojangles Coliseum. What a name. I got to do an interview there about Chris Jericho and heading into the Full Gear match. And I was just incredibly thrilled with how it came off. I had worked really hard on it. Never ever believe any wrestler when they tell you they did it off the cuff or
right.
No,
never ever. Don't believe any of them, even if it was literally if Piper or Dusty came back from the dead and say, "Oh yeah, we were just doing it." No. It was they were doing it in their car, they were doing it at the gym, they were testing it on the boys, they were stealing lines from songs.
By the time it's maybe in front of a camera,
yes.
It's a one and done.
Oh, yeah. Same with Hulkamania. Everything was incredibly meticulous and worked on, and I'd worked really hard on that one, and I thought like, man, we got it. We nailed it. It wasn't even about selling tickets as much as Chris had done such a good job. And when I was in there with Chris, I don't think I've told him this, but I have mentioned it before. I wasn't just trying to be in the match. I wanted to be on the same level as Chris because Chris did not consider me on his level. I don't know if he does now. I know he was happy with the totality of how it all went, but he didn't consider me on his level in WWE. He wasn't rude to me. He didn't look down on me, but I was beneath him. And I was sharing the same main event with him. So if I'm sharing the main event with you, I can't be beneath you anymore. And the only way you're going to believe that is if I like deliver. And that moment of delivery, more than anything, I was really happy about that interview. And the people seemed to like it too.
No, it was tremendous.
Wonderful.
It really was.
And Tony gave me this little. Has he told you?
No.
Has he given you the nudge?
No. What's this nudge thing?
He said to me before we went out, he was like,
Have you a drink first?
He was like, don't lean down in the mic. I'm a big lean down in the mic.
Right.
If you watch any of the AEW press conferences, I'm just down in it.
Yeah, you go down to the mic.
And he mentioned it, and I, in my mind, was like, yeah, no shit. Like, I'm not going to do that. And then the first thing in the promo, I start leaning down, and he just, like, nudged. And he nudged my elbow to stand up straight and gave me that Iggy to do so. And I don't know if that piece. It's like when you have a rock in your shoe and you got to get that out of your shoe before you can go on to do what you're doing next. But I completely got out of my head about remembering what I'm going to say or even what I'm going to say, and I just was able to deliver the homework I had already been done, and that was just this nice little moment. So Tony gets, I'd say, I'll give him 30% of the credit.
I'll take 10% of the credit.
No, 30.
Take
Okay,
30.
I'll take 30.
70-30.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really, that was special. And I got to do it with Tony. Tony has all these memories with Dusty, and everyone's like, oh, the Shivani's, they must know. Me and Tony don't know each other that well.
No.
Not well enough.
No.
All this money these guys made, spent together, we don't have memories. And I thought, I need a memory with Tony.
And that was it.
Yeah.
There's another one, too. I want to throw this one out at you. And this really hit me home with me, was the first match ever on Dynamite.
Oh.
And you were in the ring, and you and I embraced, okay? And you cried. You did. You were sobbing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, when it happened, this is the emotion of the hard work and effort and thought process it took to get to this point.
Yeah.
And now we have finally done it. We have finally put a brand new show on, and I thought that was just a great moment.
That was a really good moment, and you were there too, Aubrey.
I was, but I was hanging out with Sammy, trying to basically get him to the back as soon as possible. So I missed out on all of the touching bits.
But it was, and it was a moment that some
I
people
watched it after the fact. It was great.
Some people realized what was going on, but I knew it. You knew, and I knew. It was just a moment that we shared about the effort and hard work, and it would take to put the show on, and we finally did it. Now it's just the beginning of the journey, but it was a really special moment, I thought.
Yeah, that was a special moment. That wasn't something you can put in a script or a format, something that just happens, and that was a special moment. And when I got in the ring, before I ended that segment embracing you, and we didn't really get to talk much because Chris jumped me, and but I opened that segment with telling you congratulations. I made it a point, and whether this matters to you or not, or maybe later in our lives this will matter to you, I made it a point to try and be the calmest person in the segment.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know Sammy's a cocky Sammy, but Sammy's never been on live TV before.
No.
And this was one of the things, okay,
I had never been on live TV before.
This was one of those things okay, my WWE experience actually can help me here. This is something I can help people with. And then that night was so amazing because all these people that we thought would be overtime, it was just like...
Yeah, that's right.
It really kind of ran itself that first night. And that was a very special memory. And it was my favorite, one of my favorite matches ever, actually.
It was really good.
Yeah, Sammy's special. And Sammy, I remember people were telling us to do this gimmick match. I'm not going to say who, but they were basically wanting us to do kind of nostalgia, WCW style nostalgia. And I was so adamant when I told Tony I wanted to wrestle Sammy. Because Tony had joked oh, that's a Wrestle Circus match. I think we actually did wrestle at Wrestle Circus.
You guys did, yeah.
And I was like, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm going to show you what a Wrestle Circus match really is, though. The heart and soul of this was built on the independence, and he got to see that, and Sammy got to be shown to the world in a good light. So I look forward to the next one.
Talk about the creative process of putting together a show.
Yeah,
because it's different now than it used to be. I mean, you live in Atlanta, Tony's in Jacksonville, the Bucks are out west, Kenny and
we don't know where Kenny is.
We don't know where Kenny is.
Is he in Florida?
I don't know where he is. Florida, maybe, and it's different.
Parts unknown.
Parts unknown. Yeah.
I think Florida. I mean, the creative process is what we promise people. It really is different flavors and a different variety. And whenever there's a dip or a wane, maybe a rating dip slightly, or a segment that's not particularly a home run, that's always one of the big criticisms. You gotta have one vision. You gotta get Russo, get this guy. Just it's fun when they come in because you're But the reason this exists in the first place is because it wasn't about one vision. It was about the wrestling fan is not coming all looking for the same person or the same moment or the same. They're not going to buy the same T-shirt. They might majority like something or dislike something, but their views are different. So I think the creative process needs to be congruent with that, and it is not as difficult as people think. Matt, Nick, Kenny, myself, and Tony. The best thing I could parallel I could think of is a band. Everyone plays a different instrument. Everyone thinks they're the lead singer too. But if someone brings a song, you do everything you can to make it may not be from your heart and soul, but you want to see their process on it. You want to support their process. And that to me is the process of AEW. And to be even more like specific, extrapolating and narrowing down what that means. Like Matt and Nick are really meta, fourth wall poking, like Deadpool in pro wrestling. Kenny very much still in his roots in Japan and the Joshi heartbeat that exists there, but also the strong style heartbeat of matches in general and the long stretch of a match and what you can tell in there. And then me, it's old school Southern wrestling, specifically Southern wrestling, matched up with Tony, who manages somehow to like everything.
Yeah. I don't know how does he sleep? Do you know, does he sleep?
I don't know if he'd care about this, but I saw him. He had one time standing next to me in the urinal, was on the phone with a very high-paid NFL player who was in like the middle of a genuine scandal, and he was handling that while he was peeing next to me right before we went into another meeting. So I just envy the ability to do that. Like, I mean, I that's a goal if you're
to handle stuff while
you want to be able to manage things. Like, hey, any time it could come up.
Anytime it could come up.
Yeah. Tony likes everything though. You think like, oh, he only likes New Japan.
Nope.
And then you'll tell him about this, you remember this thing they did at Mid-South with Mr. Wrestling #2, and you just think like...
He remembers the wrestler, the date, the venue, everything.
Analytics
like he's watched
brain,
literally
man.
all of it.
Little genius.
So in Miami, the event's called Bash at the Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you want to tell us about the trademark binge you went on?
Sure, it's a legal nightmare. So this is AEW's first Bash at the Beach. It also might be AEW's last Bash at the Beach, so let's have a great time. And
it's all those board shirts I invested in. I should have kept the tags on.
I think we'll be okay. They're not WWE not particularly happy about all the trademarks I acquired, and trademark law is really actually basic everywhere but wrestling. Wrestling, you'd think like. There's this idea that if you buy something but you let it lapse, it's still yours, or the spoils of war. Like wrestling legitimately had a war between, WCW and WWE actually won. And the amount of bad fallout that came out of that, I think is so much larger than the good stuff that came out of it. Like people lost their jobs, all these trademarks, all these pieces of history. Now, does WWE do a good job as a custodian of history? Absolutely. The network has done well,
everything.
And they do some stuff well. But there's been a lot of things that they didn't care for that they've let lapse or kind of fall to the wayside. And anything that was connected in any way with my dad, I just wanted to pick up. I don't know what my grand play is here. I just wanted to pick it up to have. For my family, we're not merchandising it. I'm not making any money off the Bash at the Beach.
It's just to
name.
own it.
It's just to have it, and
it's part of your history.
Yeah, I think my grand scheme. I don't know if you can include this, but I was going to get as many things to irritate them as possible, so that they were just like, "Hey, you know what? You can have Starrcade. You just
that's the one you want."
Because
that's the one.
Great American Bash and Starrcade are 100% his. Like I don't give a damn. Like I've had to listen to Meltzer, who me and Dave. I like Dave. I'm saying this out loud, but he's always trying to like sell the Starrcades, not Dusty's, and I'm like, man, like at this point, there's no Starrcade and Great American Bash.
Starrcade is Dusty's, buddy.
Are Dusty's.
Yes,
and I would rather have those than 100 Slamborees. Now, do I have the Slamboree? Yeah, whatever. But I would rather have those two in my like heart and soul, and I know. It would mean a lot to my mom and my sister. And then my brother, if he gets involved, he'll be trying to like print Starrcade T-shirts or something. But that's why I love him. But yeah, that may be my grand play, which isn't good that I said it out loud. But we got a lot of trademarks.
We do.
We got a lot of trademarks, courtesy of old Conrad.
And
See money.
yeah, and the great
And
Mike Dawkins.
Old Dawkins,
See
huh?
something else, man.
What a guy. It's like, hey, talk to Dawkins. He's like the new wrestling lawyer. When
Yes,
somebody
he
asks
is.
a question about, like, what do I do if I want to trademark this? Or, talk to Dawkins.
Right.
Man. He's smart. Wrestling doesn't have enough smart people. And that's one of the good things about Tony Khan. Like,
He's a very smart guy.
just get some smart people in here. Chris
Right.
Harrington.
Oh my God.
Yes.
But socially just a disaster. And like everything about Chris is like, oh man, like you're the worst, but you're the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because we really need people like that around.
Right.
So I like the smart people. Here's to the smart people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Arn Anderson is your is the head coach.
Yeah.
Of you now. How's that working out? I mean, my God, it's Arn Anderson, right?
What is that smirk for?
It's Arn.
Yeah.
I think people maybe they don't understand the full history with Arn and myself. Like, Arn and I do have a lot of memories because he was the agent at WWE when I debuted on TV in 2007. Meaning, if you had a bad live event outing and Arn put that in the report, you were back to developmental. And usually, if you were back to developmental more than once, you were gone. It was see you bye. Like, his word was law, and he was immensely hard on me. Immensely hard. Not so much in like a ribbing way, but in a very like out loud, in the go position. He was positive reinforcement. Sure, if we hit a home run, he let us know. But if we didn't, he let us know. And
Like a disappointed parent.
but he was a
almost.
really good. I needed that. Now the thing is, you come back and somebody asks, "Hey, how was it?" and they just thumbs up, and then they bury you on their phone, or you know what? As soon as you walk away. Versus that's the whole ticket. I'm a slow learner. I love slow learner wrestlers like Shawn Michaels or Eddie Guerrero, guys who I had to watch for like 10 years before the big moment happened. But I'm a really slow learner. If you don't tell me what's missing, I'm showing up the same way the next week. All you got to do is tell me. Like,
You can't expect that of anybody, right?
Yeah.
Unless you tell them what they're doing wrong, they're not going to fix it.
So Arn is the guy for telling you what to do wrong. And
So Arn is your coach on TV, but really is your coach.
a life coach.
Like, if you were to look around as a wrestler putting together a match, or as a wrestler thinking about the totality of events over the next few months, what's going to happen for you, that guy, I don't mean to sound negative, but how you can hire 40 writers ever when you have one Arn Anderson or one Dean Malenko or one Fit Finley, like, that's where the answers are. They're not. You can't write wrestling. You have to book wrestling. And Arn he has just a brilliant mind for it. And I'm really glad so far it's worked out so well.
That's Arn out there right
That's
now
Arn.
telling somebody to.
No, I'm really happy with Arn as the coach. We're getting him a laminate play card.
Ooh.
A little smaller than the one I saw the Patriots had, but a laminate play card for I think Cleveland or the next in-ring outing. So I'm excited about that.
Cleveland. We're talking to Cody, and as you know, we can't let you go without talking about your family and your dad,
Oh,
the
yeah.
American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and we'll be doing that here in just a moment. We're talking with Cody, and we're talking about his wrestling start, his childhood, his family, and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, who I worked with for many, many years, and we're very good friends with, and it's quite a legacy. I mean, it really is. We touched on Starrcade, and I was there at the very first Starrcade, and I knew that he had come up with it, and he and I talked about it that night. That his vision, he always talked about vision, didn't he? Yeah, his vision for making something big.
Yeah.
Taking pro wrestling, and he's really one of the people that took pro wrestling. It's the old cliche, taking it out of the smoky auditoriums and taking it to the big arenas. And he was one of that had the vision to do that.
Yeah, they had. I don't think people were. It's great because now all of a sudden everyone's like, man, Dusty had a lot to do with everything.
Everything.
One of the things that I'm super proud of, and as a child, you find yourself where you're proud of your parents, and you wonder what, like, you weren't around during those periods, but you still find that there's a sense of pride in it. Had him and Vince not gone toe to toe on the mega event with WrestleMania and with Starrcade, and they had not accessed the closed circuit concept of the theaters. The only thing that was really doing it at the time was boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And boxing wasn't going to get the pay-per-view industry started solely. So these guys are somewhat responsible for the pay-per-view boom as well. Hey, it's closed circuit, and my event needs to be bigger than yours. Well, I'll do a simulcast, and y'all do a triple cast. And, like, that's just something I'm very proud of him, and I'm proud that people later in, they've realized more and more. His star, like, is still burning brighter versus, not burning. He used to nudge me at the WWE Hall of Fame when people would mention him. Like, he would basically keep a count.
Like a tally.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sure he did, yeah.
And one of them, it was every person who got inducted, and I thought, like, you got something on all these people, like it's really, like, he really, I think, was good. He liked broken toys, people that he could fix and people he could mold. He saw stuff when people didn't see things in themselves, and surrounded himself with good people. Like, I don't know. There was this weird period of time where everyone was on his ass about him putting Crockett out of business. And then later on, it kind of came out that everybody put Crockett out of business. But Paul Heyman told me this great story. He was like, don't ever listen to anyone who complains about the Dusty's days at Jim Crockett or NWA, because the parking lot was filled with literally, like, gremlins and Pintos, and then Dusty showed up, and the next thing you know, the parking lot's filled with Mercedes and brand new Lincolns, and everyone was getting paid. Mm-hmm. Did they know what to do with it? Did they know what to do next? Maybe not. Did they need 2 jets? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
But yeah, they live large, and I'm very proud of everything that still comes out about him to this day. I always think, what happens if he just, like, showed up? Like, what if it was like he just showed up in my, like, a Force ghost appeared in, like, my bedroom or something? What the hell would I tell him about what's happened in wrestling? I wouldn't know to tell him. Like, well, I quit. And then this, and then, like, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think if he was around, even if he was still working for NXT, he'd want to come work here. I think he'd really like it.
That was going to be my question. Like,
yeah.
Do you think he'd be here from, like, day one, or would he have stayed?
So, man, we've jumped the pop culture shark a lot here, but I'll throw you another one. I'm a big Potterhead, and my house in the
Timeout. Yeah. Which house are you?
I'm a Hufflepuff.
Okay.
Are you?
I'm Gryffindor.
That seems about right.
Right.
Tony?
Slytherin.
Really?
Yeah, ambitious, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That honestly, that doesn't seem. I was gonna say Ravenclaw,
yeah,
a rare
Ravenclaw.
Okay.
Brandy's a Slytherin. So anyways, Hufflepuff. The thing about the Hufflepuff element is, and maybe I don't get this from him. Maybe I get this from my mom, but I'm extremely loyal to a fault, to a dead, like, absolute fault. And I don't know if he shared that same thing, but Hunter gave him that cushy 1 day a week job at the Performance Center teaching promos, where half the time they were, like, watching movies, and it was more like a life class.
Right.
Which is what promo class should be,
Sure.
but it was a pretty cushy gig he had. So I don't know if my mom would let him come work here. I think she would, but he was really loyal, and he might have remained loyal. Who knows? No. That's the thing about him, and he was great about this. Many years ago, he saw this terrible wrestling angle that, I don't know how to pronounce it. Posthumous? Is that when someone's passed on, or? Okay, well, anyways, like, basically implying that it was an angle where someone who had passed away, they were trying to use him as part of the angle.
Okay.
And I remember my dad telling me, I was only like 12 years old, he goes, please don't let anyone ever say I would have liked this, or I would have, that they don't know. And that's why my big rule is, and it's kind of common knowledge, like, you can't talk about my dad. If you talk about my dad in a promo, angle's over, brother. We're done. Like, he ain't coming back, Like, you got to talk about me. Which Jericho didn't totally get the hint on that.
He kind of does what he wants.
But that's I don't even know where I was at anymore. But
we're talking about Dusty.
Dusty,
I think
being at NXT, you being here.
Would he be here?
Yeah.
I think he'd have to be here.
Oh, I'd want him here.
Especially with all of the other people coming in, it's like
it's
you're basically
Turner.
just like
It's Turner too.
you're bringing all of his buddies in, man.
all his buddies, and it's literally like, I don't mean to, sound negative about WWE, but it's the Rebel Alliance, man. Like,
right.
It's literally like the First Order showed up, and you got Lando showed back up in his cape and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like we even got like Dustin referring to us on Wednesdays in his classes as kids.
Well, that's Dustin's. Dustin is that's a conversation that you'll enjoy a lot. The polar opposites of human beings.
Really?
Is what I found that Dustin and I are. Every decision, will you go left, will you go right? Polar opposites.
Wow.
I don't try to force me on him anymore. I don't care when he forces him on whatever. You are you. Different childhoods created different roads.
So on that, going back to Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
Because you'd said that this is a big important moment. Like, it's a big important moment for wrestling in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like that show and that match. Knowing that it's your brother, is there anything else? Do you approach it differently? Do you prepare in a different way?
I mean, when it's your brother or when it's your friend, like, that match is going to be a little bit more violent, naturally, because there's a little,
there's like a gallon of blood there.
Yeah, there's a little element of like trust that exists. So I didn't really approach it in a different way. I guess I did, and QT, who was somewhat involved with that match, QT Marshall, he always says, you excel in 50 plus, is what he tells me. Like, I excel at 50 plus. And it's because of that, I know that type of wrestler. My dad was also an old man wrestler at one point. Like, I had to watch that a lot and see when it was done right and see when it was done wrong. And I went into that match really, for the first time ever, like, I went into the match with Chris about, hey, I'm going to show Chris I'm on his level. He's going to believe it after we touch in this ring. I went in the match with Dustin as, I'm going to lead the veteran. He's not going to lead. I'm going to lead the veteran. And I don't know why that was so important to me, but that's how I approached that one. And that was really my only thought process the whole time. I had no idea it was going so well. I had no idea about anything other than when he was bleeding so much. My genuine thought was, I've got to fix this something. Like, I was thinking about putting my thumb on his head. I was rubbing my tape on it. Cold water. A bazillion things were going through my head because he was bleeding so much.
Just dripping.
Yeah, and that was a big concern I had. And then after, he was fine, and it was wrestling. You know. Yeah, but that was a special match.
Go back the next day.
Yeah, of course.
So growing up, what was your first introduction to pro wrestling? Do you remember?
Yeah, probably the Omni. I always talk about the first time I heard it. It was either UTC Chattanooga or the Omni.
Okay.
And I really did. I didn't care about being backstage. Like, I wanted to. I always tell people it's not the first time I saw it. It's the first time I heard it. I think it was UTC Chattanooga, actually. I know it was a Brad Armstrong match. But I was backstage, and everybody thought I would like being backstage. But I was a really introverted kid. I didn't want to really be backstage, or you didn't want to be ribbed by the boys either. Like, I was like young, like I was weird. But I heard the crowd react to a bump, and I was like, I got to go out there. And Doug Dillinger had printed me this really like oversized, like the ones we have, pass. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was like the keys to the kingdom. I'd basically walk out there and sit in an empty seat.
Right.
And I sat there and I watched that show, and was just, everything was amazing to me. Everything. I didn't come in with any preconceived notions. My dad didn't really he didn't highlight or low light people. He kind of always let me decide what I liked and what I didn't. Cool. I know he had plenty of personal opinions about people. I would never know them, ever, because I was a big WWF fan, too, as a kid. And those were not his favorite people, some of the top stars at the time, and he didn't care. He used me as, I think, like a guinea pig, kind of a field test for stuff. But, yeah, the UTC Chattanooga, I heard it. It was Brad Armstrong in the ring, went out there, didn't want to leave, couldn't go to school the next day. I was just enamored with the concept of wrestling and the fame and the stardom and the excitement. And there also used to be a thing called, it doesn't exist anymore. Well, maybe. I don't think it does. There used to be a thing called a chick pop, where like Brad Armstrong or Dustin or Sting would walk out there and the women would go nuts. Just like the women. You'd hear the women. Yeah, now you don't like hear the women.
No, not at all. You
Sorry,
hear the fans.
Sorry.
But that used to
I apologize for my entire
as a little boy, it was like, oh, that's cool.
That's
like
the guy.
Yeah, like I
want to be that guy.
Yeah, you want to be that guy. Like Dustin, like to his face, we're brothers. Like, I'm not gonna ever like compliment him, but like he got like one of the biggest trick pops ever one time in the Omni, and I thought, like, this is such a unbelievably cool gig.
Yeah.
Like, and just an unbelievable cool gig. I wanted to be those guys, so that was a good time. Anytime I could go, Macon, Atlanta, UTC, North Carolina, Alabama, Florida, I would go. I'd have to go. I'd always miss school the next day. I crossed path with many of Shivani's children. Yeah. It was a good time.
Yeah. So I guess you wanted to be involved in wrestling from day one?
Oh, no, I didn't want to do anything but wrestling.
Okay.
But when you grow up in the suburbs of Cobb County, where I still live today, which Brandi loves when I highlight.
Nothing like East Cobb.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's God's country.
Yes, it is.
But anyways, wrestling's not super popular in the suburbs.
No.
It may be, but it's closet popular. And where we lived, my dad it was very much like the Addams Family. We were looked at as like this, like Gabe Simpson lived in the next neighborhood.
Right.
That was the celebrity dad.
Sure.
Gabe Simpson of the Braves. He's the commentator. He's the Braves. Like Dusty, we lived on the other side of the neighborhood, and we'd all meet conveniently at the pool. And Dusty would wear his trunks, his legit trunks, and he was over 300 pounds. And he would dive on the diving board where, I mean, it was unreal. Like, you'd see this thing bend where it touched the water. And he was always, like, he just was a scene. His presence was a scene.
Right.
And it never embarrassed me, ever. It was who he was. But in the suburbs, you don't often say out loud, all I want to be is a pro wrestler, is, I guess, the best way I would put it. Although I did many times, but yeah, that was kind of the existence there in East Cobb. I pretended to want to be a lot of other things, and then when finally I got the opportunity, I knew I wasn't going to go to college because the idea of a higher education I think is stupid.
I'm gonna walk away now.
So, but my mom loves this when I get into the higher education thing because all her the kids she actually likes go to college. But
So your sister?
Yeah, my sister went to a couple colleges. She got that Tommy Boy degree.
Oh yeah.
Teal is a wonderful person, though.
Yes, she is.
Anyways, I said I would be an actor. That is the dream I sold them when I was 18 leaving. I always wanted to be a wrestler, but I said I'd be an actor because I really was afraid I was too small to be a wrestler. Now I'm a giant.
Yeah, you're huge.
You said wrestling was not really popular in the suburbs, but amateur wrestling in the state of Georgia is big.
Hell yeah.
Yes, it is. And you were probably the biggest star.
I was a little mini celebrity.
Yes, you
Too
were.
early.
Anybody who knew anything about high school wrestling knew about Cody.
I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And this is so weird, and I don't know if anyone will understand this, but one of the reasons I got into amateur wrestling so hard was because my dad had been, like I said, the Addams Family thing. People really grinded on me and were really negative about his job. And
I get that.
And that amateur wrestling was the thing I chose to do that was very real, and that I was obsessed with it, like dangerously obsessed with it. I'd go to Lassiter before the sun came up in the middle of winter when wrestling season is, and I'd run. I had a free period both junior and senior year where I would go train in the wrestling room and then shower, go to the next class, and pass out because I was a legit calorie deficient.
Yeah.
Right.
Then I'd have practice after, and then there was a Cosmos Fitness right next door that was open 24 hours to my house, and I didn't even know how to work out. I was just reading like Muscle and Fitness,
right.
And I would go to that gym. So I'm training 4 times a day for high school amateur wrestling, and it was great because Brandi does not like when I talk about wrestling because it's the glory days or whatever. But I went 101-2. I only ever lost the 2 matches, and it was like the coolest time ever. Dusty was a huge mark for it. Didn't even know how it scored though. He really didn't, because I would do like a reversal and you could see him like he didn't get excited about. He didn't know how the scoring really worked for it ever. He wore the same shirt to every dual meet. This flannel. And the Marietta Daily Journal went from covering him to covering me. And I thought that was really cool. It wasn't the goal of mine, but the first picture of the Like Father, Like Son headline is a picture of my face getting scratched apart and then Dusty up in the stands, clapping, professionally lit. So then, yeah, he was just that amateur wrestling period for Lassiter and the whole deal. Nothing's like amateur wrestling because it's completely your fault if you win, completely your fault if you lose. Like, it's all on you. Like, even dual meets are team-wise, but not really. Like, it's all about what you did. And I had a great coach, Steve Day. Oh, man, that was my game plan. When I was Stardust, I was like, man, I'm just stuck. Like, I'm going to get a degree. Like, I should have in the first place. A higher education, and I'm going to be a wrestling coach.
Right.
That was my game plan during the Stardust period of time. So I'm glad I didn't go that way.
I don't think many people realize, and I do because I was involved in it to a certain extent, how intense amateur wrestling is.
Oh, boy.
It's
boy.
Because we had Tim, our son, who was wrestling JV for Pope when you were the varsity for Lassiter, okay? Lois.
Haskins? Was he with Haskins? Who was the coach?
Yeah, he was with Haskins.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. He and Haskins butted heads a lot.
Yeah.
So Lois, my wife, walked out many matches.
Ooh.
She stormed right out. I don't know if she wanted to be dramatic or what, but she just couldn't take it.
It's really kind of stomach and heart wrenching when it's somebody you care about wrestling.
Yeah, right.
Especially if they're getting beat.
Right.
Or if they're about to be pinned, or
Right.
if they're down on the score where there's a whole 2 minutes left in that third period and there's no way they're coming back, or if they're getting it's rough. My mom, because I was really bad at it as a little kid, and then I got into it in high school. My mom, if you ever see pictures of her sitting there, you cannot tell. I think this is where she adopted this soulless stare that she hands just clenched, and she would just watch. Because I think she was trying to stay calm for my dad, who was a little bit more animated, and Flair was the worst. Rick was the worst.
Yeah,
so my dad was always
Right.
trying to be less than Rick.
Right.
Because Rick was over in Georgia and the Carolinas. You knew, if Rick and Reed were there, Rick was very active, and Reed was such a great amateur wrestler. It was great. Stern-faced lady is what we call my mom,
Right.
and that is what NXT, when she would come to those shows, there was a hashtag one time for her because she was sitting in the wrong side of the stands where the camera was on her. Made my day. Stern-faced lady.
Stern-faced lady.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, but the good news is that we're moving forward with AEW with Dynamite, and we're having great times putting it together on Wednesday and moving forward with that. And I'm sure you got to be excited about what the future is going to bring for us, aren't you?
I am, and I think when you guys talk to Tony, I know that's coming up. I think you might want to dig in a little further on this question, because a lot of good news has come to AEW in the last 48 hours.
Oh, boy.
And it would involve everyone in this room, I think, YouTube particularly. So maybe don't ask him, because I'm not supposed to. Don't ask him. It's a surprise.
Yeah, he told us.
Yeah, he said
we got some big
we were
things we
gonna
could talk about.
talk to him today after the production.
You never
meeting.
know what that means with him.
No, I know you don't.
You never know.
I know you
Is there a new flavor of White Claw? I don't know.
I got into White Claw last week, by the way.
Really?
Did
You know what? And I didn't want to.
Okay.
I really still don't want to.
What is your flavor?
The ruby one. So here's why. I didn't want to, and it was the only thing there. And I got an IPA, and then there was 8.
Well,
rubies.
I hate IPAs. I live in Seattle. It's all we have. It's terrible.
Yeah, well, I don't drink that often, so when I do, I want the full body, the bite. I don't want to
You
just
wanna
throw
go all
it back.
in. Okay.
All in, yes. Story of my life.
Yep.
But the White Claws, the ruby one, I was kind of digging. I was sitting there and just kind of enjoying it, and I guess that's my flavor of White Claw. Yeah.
Well, thanks, buddy. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. I know I'm speaking for her, be a part of all this. It's been.
You know how
fun.
you got your job, right?
Yeah.
Do you know really fully how you got your job?
I mean, I know bits and pieces.
Do you know who's most responsible for it?
CD?
Close.
Who?
Frankie.
Well, yeah. Obviously, Frankie. Frankie was the one that put my name in the pot.
Yeah, and CD pushed it forward, and then I'd say I'm 3. Yeah. I'm 3.
Thanks, bro.
I'm 3, but Frankie, that's
yeah.
that guy.
Great
and then
hire.
but now it's fully you.
That's right.
You're owning this joint.
You are owning it.
Jim Ross's favorite.
I don't.
He was once your favorite, just stay his favorite. There's no reason to.
He called me Girl Hebner on his podcast.
Yeah.
I've made it. Done.
He's seen it all. So if you're his favorite, that's a good. It's a good
wild.
thing.
It's weird. I just like showing up to work every Wednesday. It's a blast.
What's your favorite Trek captain? All right, I'm done. Right, this is the last question. Favorite Trek captain?
It's Picard.
Picard for sure.
Yeah, by far.
What about you?
I think it's got to be Picard, even though I haven't watched as much Picard.
For your lifestyle, though, for your generation, Picard is the most important.
Right.
Picard for me.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man.
Thank you.
This has been super fun.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Cody.
you guys. Thank
Don't
you.
forget, you can get AEW Unrestricted, your podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts. Tune into Dynamite Wednesdays, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. I'm Tony Schiavone,
I'm Aubrey Edwards.
and this has been, go ahead, AEW Unrestricted.
Yeah, I just want to see if you remembered the name.